All right, let's jump right in. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
The first thing I saw that morning was my sister's smile. It was wide, confident, public. I was still in field camo boots, dusty from a week out at a forward operations site. My duffel bag hung off one shoulder. The main gate was busy, like always, contractors, junior enlisted delivery trucks, IDs flashing under the scanner. And right in front of the security checkpoint stood Brianna. She wasn't alone. 2 military police officers stood beside her, arms folded, neutral expressions. That kind of neutral that means paperwork is already done. "Stop right there, Avery," Brianna said. She didn't call me sis. She didn't lower her voice. She wanted an audience. I kept walking until I was 3 feet from her, close enough to see the shine on her new watch, close enough to see she had rehearsed this. One of the MPs stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to set your bag down." "For what reason?" I asked. Brianna answered before he could. "You've been reported for theft," she said. "Loud, clear, family property, and potentially government materials." A few heads turned. A staff sergeant slowed down. Someone stopped mid-sip of coffee. The MP kept his tone professional. "We received a complaint this morning. We're required to investigate." Of course they were. That's the thing about wearing a uniform. It doesn't protect you from procedure. It binds you to it. I set my duffel on the ground. "Go ahead," I said. Brianna crossed her arms. She was in her press service uniform, ribbons aligned perfectly. Logistics officer, on track for early promotion, the golden child of the family. If you asked my parents, she was the future of the name. I was the paperwork. The MP searched my bag. Clothes, field notebook, secured tablet with clearance lock. Nothing unusual, nothing illegal. "Where's the jewelry?" Brianna asked. "What jewelry?" I said. "Grandfather's signet ring, the silver one. You took it after dinner." There it was, family property. The ring was on my right hand. Old, scratched, not worth much on the market. Worth everything in meaning. I slowly raised my hand. "This one," her jaw tightened. "That belongs to the family," she snapped. "You don't get to just take things because you feel left out." Left out. That was her word for it. The MP looked between us. "Ma'am, was this ring given to you?" "It was given to me by my grandfather before he passed," I said calmly. Brianna laughed. "Funny, because Mom and Dad don't remember that." Of course they didn't. They remembered whatever benefited Brianna. The gate traffic had slowed now. People weren't pretending anymore. They were watching. Brianna took a step closer. "You've embarrassed this family long enough. You don't contribute. You hide behind some vague desk job and act like you're better than everyone." I didn't respond. I rarely do when she performs. The night before flashed in my mind. My parents' dining room, polished wood table, too much wine, too many opinions. Silas, my father, had cleared his throat like he was delivering a verdict. "You know," he said, "when people ask what our daughters do, I'm proud to talk about Brianna." Martha nodded. "She's respected. She's moving up. She has connections." Then they looked at me. "And you," my mother said. "You push paper." I took a sip of water. "I serve," I said. Behind a desk, Brianna added, "Let's not pretend it's heroic." My father leaned back in his chair. "Your sister is building something. You just disappear for months and don't tell us anything." I didn't tell them because I couldn't, not because I didn't matter. Martha sighed. "Sometimes I wonder how 2 girls from the same house turned out so different." There it was, the family disappointment speech. Brianna lifted her wine glass. "To the one who actually makes us proud." They clinked glasses. I didn't. When dinner ended, my grandfather's ring was sitting in a small velvet box on the mantel. It had been his. He'd given it to me quietly in the hospital 5 years ago. "Not all service is loud," he told me. "Some of it is necessary." I took the ring because it was already mine. Apparently that was theft. Back at the gate, Brianna's voice cut through the morning air. "She's unstable," she told the MPs. "She's always been jealous. We're concerned she might escalate." Unstable. That word travels fast in a military file. I looked directly at the MP. "Are you placing me under detention?" He hesitated. "We're requesting you come with us for questioning." Brianna smiled again. "See, actions have consequences." I studied her face. She believed she was winning. She thought this was about a ring, about image, about keeping me in my place. She had no idea what she had just triggered. But I wasn't going to show that. I bent down, picked up my duffel, and handed it back to the MP. Lead the way, I said. As we started walking toward the security office, Brianna fell in beside us. You could have just signed the paperwork, she whispered. It didn't have to be public. What paperwork? The MP asked. She smiled at him like she hadn't said anything. I stayed quiet. The paperwork she meant was waiting at my parents' house, a document transferring my share of our grandfather's estate to Brianna, for the sake of her career stability, because apparently my existence was a liability. We reached the security building. Right before I stepped inside, I glanced back at the gate. Dozens of eyes, whispers already forming. That's the thing about public humiliation. It spreads faster than truth. I adjusted the ring on my finger. Cold metal, familiar weight. Brianna thought she was exposing a fraud. She had no idea she was standing in front of someone who had spent 5 years documenting fraud for a living. But I kept my face neutral, because in my line of work, the first rule is simple. Never interrupt someone while they're building the case against themselves. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been the most underestimated person in the room, dismissed as irrelevant, weak, or replaceable, while quietly carrying responsibilities no one else could handle? If you have, I want you to tell me what that felt like. I checked my account the second they left me alone in the holding room. The MP had stepped out to verify documentation. Brianna was pacing the hallway, probably updating my parents. I pulled out my secured phone, logged into my military credit union, balance $14.72. I stared at the screen. That account wasn't a checking account. It wasn't casual money. It held hazard pay retention bonuses, classified mission stipends that never made it into normal payroll summaries. Money earned in places no one at that dinner table could pronounce. Gone. Every transfer had been cleared 2 weeks earlier. Same branch, same in-person authorization, same signature, mine. I zoomed in on the digital copy. It was good, not perfect, but good. I locked the phone and leaned back in the metal chair. The door opened. Brianna stepped inside before the MP could stop her. 2 minutes, she told him. Family matter. He hesitated, then nodded and closed the door. She didn't sit. You really dragged this out, she said. You drained my account. She didn't blink. It wasn't drained. It was reallocated. To your Porsche, she smirked. So you noticed. The audacity would have been impressive if it weren't predictable. You forged my signature, I said. I adapted it, she corrected. You're never around. Someone has to make executive decisions. It's a federal offense. She waved that away. Relax. It's family money. It's my military compensation. She crossed her arms. For doing what camping, I let that hang there. You don't need that kind of cash, she continued. You disappear for months. You eat government food. You sleep in tents or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm the one in public. I represent this family. Image matters. Image optics, she said. Promotion boards look at lifestyle, stability, presence. I can't show up to base events driving a used sedan while my sister hoards money she doesn't even use. I almost laughed. You stole federal funds to upgrade your car. I invested in perception, she said. There's a difference. No, there isn't. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. Mom and Dad agreed. That part didn't surprise me. They said you owe the family, she continued. You've always been distant, uncooperative. You don't network. You don't show up. You make us look divided. I make you uncomfortable. You make us look small. There it was. The truth always slips out eventually. The door opened again. This time both my parents walked in. Silas looked irritated. Martha looked dramatic. Oh good, my mother said. We can settle this like adults. Silas placed a folder on the table in front of me. We didn't want it to come to this, he said. That's interesting, I replied. Because none of this looks accidental, Martha sighed. Your sister is on the verge of a major promotion. She can't have scandal. She forged my signature. For the good of the family. Silas snapped. Stop being so rigid. I opened the folder. Property transfer documents. Grandfather's house. My half signed over to Brianna. This is not about the ring, I said. No, Martha replied. It's about contribution. I contributed 5 years of classified service. You push paper, she said again. Let's not exaggerate. I closed the folder. You drained my account, I said calmly. Now you want my inheritance. Silas leaned forward. You don't need the house. You're never home. That's not your decision. It is if you care about this family. Brianna stepped beside him. Sign it, she said softly. and I'll drop the complaint. I looked at her. So this was leverage. It's negotiation. No, I said. It's extortion, Martha's voice sharpened. Don't use ugly words. They're accurate. Silas tapped the folder. You've embarrassed us long enough with your secretive nonsense. Brianna is visible. She's respected. She's advancing. We need unity. You need control. We need cooperation. They all stared at me like I was the unreasonable one. I thought about the Porsche, about the forged signature, about the transfer logs. Brianna had done this in person, which meant surveillance footage, bank officer testimony, digital entry records. She had left fingerprints everywhere. You really think this won't catch up to you? I asked. She smiled. Who's going to push it? You with what credibility? You're the one under investigation. Silas nodded. The complaint stands unless this is resolved. I leaned back in the chair. They believed the narrative. Desk job. Invisible. Replaceable. They thought my silence was weakness. They mistook clearance for irrelevance. I won't sign, I said. Martha's face hardened. Then we proceed. Proceed with what? With formal reporting, Silas said. If necessary, we raise concerns about your mental fitness. Your behavior has been erratic for years. Erratic. Because I didn't overshare. Because I didn't brag. Because I didn't ask permission. Brianna tilted her head. You could have just supported me. By financing your fraud. By understanding strategy. I stood up. The MP outside shifted when he heard the chair move. This conversation is over, I said. Silas pointed at me. You are choosing isolation. No, I replied. I'm choosing accuracy. Martha's voice dropped to something colder. Don't expect us to protect you when this escalates. I looked at all three of them. They weren't worried about right or wrong. They were worried about exposure. And exposure doesn't scare honest people. It scares greedy ones. I walked to the door and opened it myself. The MP looked at me carefully. We're still reviewing the complaint, he said. Take your time, I replied. As I stepped back into the hallway, I pulled out my phone again. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't call a friend. I opened a secure channel. One short message. Financial irregularities confirmed. Escalate audit phase. I hit send. Because when someone steals from you, you can react emotionally, or you can document. And I've always preferred documentation. I installed the camera the night I moved into that on-base apartment. Small, legal, registered under my clearance authority. People assume surveillance is paranoia. It's not. It's pattern recognition. I came back from a briefing 2 days after the bank confrontation and noticed something subtle. My closet door wasn't aligned the way I leave it. Most people wouldn't catch that. I did. I don't toss my gear. I don't shuffle my duffel. Everything has a position. Field habits don't disappear. I locked the door behind me and stood still. Silence. No visible disturbance. No forced entry, but the air felt wrong. I opened my laptop and accessed the internal camera feed. Fast forward. There she was. Brianna, using the spare key my parents insisted I give her for emergencies. She entered confidently, no hesitation. She knew I wasn't home. She moved straight to my bedroom. No wandering, no searching. That meant she came prepared. I watched her unzip my field duffel. She pulled something from her briefcase. A sealed envelope marked classified. Bold red stamp. She slid it deep under a stack of folded uniforms. Then she took out a second item. A USB drive. She hesitated for a second, then tucked it inside my boot. Careless. That's when I paused the video. I didn't feel shock. I felt confirmation. Money wasn't enough. She needed me discredited. If I was investigated for theft and mishandling classified materials, at the same time, my credibility would collapse. My clearance would freeze. My voice would disappear. And if my voice disappeared, so would any audit trail I might expose. It was simple strategy. Except she wasn't the only one who understood strategy. I watched the footage again. Frame by frame, she wore gloves, smart. But she had used her own vehicle to enter the base. Gate cameras would show entry time, exit time, cross-reference that with her duty log. Logistics officers don't usually take random midday breaks to visit their sister's apartment. Patterns leave footprints. I closed the laptop and walked to the closet. I didn't touch the bag. Instead, I pulled out my phone. Secure line. 3 words. Package confirmed active. A pause. Then the reply. Proceed documentation. I waited. Timing matters. If I reported it immediately, it would look reactive. If I waited too long, it could escalate. The next morning, I let it unfold. At 900 sharp, 2 internal security officers knocked on my door. "Ma'am, we need to conduct a search." "Of course," I said. Professional, calm. One of them read the authorization. Suspicion of unauthorized possession of classified materials. I stepped aside. "Feel free." They searched methodically. When they reached the duffel, one officer stopped. "Ma'am, are you aware this bag contains restricted documents?" "I am not." He pulled out the envelope. Red stamp facing up. The second officer found the USB in my boot. He looked uncomfortable. "This is serious." "Yes," I said. "It is." They didn't cuff me. They escorted me. There's a difference. Inside the compliance office, the atmosphere shifted. Cold, formal. An investigator placed the envelope on the table. "Explain," I said. "But first, I'd like you to review something." He raised an eyebrow. I slid my laptop forward and played the footage. Brianna entering, Brianna placing the envelope. Clear timestamp, clear face, clear intent. The room went quiet. The investigator leaned back slowly. "How long has this been recorded?" "Since move-in," I replied. "You suspected this. I document anomalies." He stared at the screen again. "Do not contact anyone," he said firmly. "We'll handle this internally." "I understand." But I had already contacted someone, because this wasn't just about a planted envelope. Brianna didn't have clearance to handle those specific documents, which meant she accessed them through someone else, or she fabricated them. Both options were worse. That afternoon, I walked past the motor pool, and I saw it. Black Porsche, temporary plates, still shining like it hadn't learned regret yet. Brianna stood beside it with 2 junior officers, laughing, confident. She spotted me. Her smile tightened. "They didn't arrest you?" she asked. "Not today." She stepped closer. "You're persistent, I'll give you that. You should give back my money instead." She smirked. "Prove it." I held her gaze. "I will." She leaned in slightly. "You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I manage supply chains for 3 operational units. You process reports." I almost corrected her. "Almost." Instead, I said, "Keep talking. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're comfortable." She scoffed. "You're not a threat, Avery." That was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me, because she truly believed it. That night, I initiated phase 2. Encrypted call, single phrase, inventory mismatch expanding. Response audit team mobilized. This wasn't about revenge. It was about exposure. Brianna's access logs would be pulled, her financial disclosures examined, procurement authorizations reviewed, luxury purchases cross-checked against salary. Logistics is a beautiful system. Every item has a trail: fuel, equipment, contracts. Money leaves fingerprints, and people who grow arrogant stop wiping them. 2 days later, rumors started moving faster than official memos. Supply discrepancies, delayed shipments, unexplained vendor approvals. I didn't have to push. The machine was already turning. Brianna cornered me near the administrative building. "What did you do?" she demanded. "Nothing," I said truthfully. Yet. Her eyes flickered. "Fear looks different on confident people. It's subtle. You're playing a dangerous game," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You are." She straightened her jacket. "You think you're smarter than everyone." "No," I said. "I think I'm patient." She walked away stiffly. I watched her get into the Porsche, watched her drive off. She still believed this was sibling rivalry. It wasn't. It was audit season, and she had just submitted herself for review. I watched my parents walk across the base parking lot like they owned it. Civilians don't move that confidently on military ground unless they think they have leverage. My mother wore sunglasses too large for her face. My father carried the same leather folder from before. Brianna followed behind them, expression calm, like this was a scheduled business meeting. It almost made me laugh. They didn't ask to meet in private. They asked to meet at the main gate, public, symbolic, visible. I agreed immediately. That surprised them. They thought I would resist. Instead, I picked the time, 1500 hours, shift change, maximum traffic. If they wanted an audience, I wasn't going to deny them one. They cornered me outside the administrative building first. Silas didn't waste time. "This is spiraling," he said. "No," I replied. "It's clarifying." Martha lowered her voice. "We are trying to protect you." "From what? From yourself?" That line again. Brianna stayed quiet this time, Watching, measuring, Silas opened the folder and showed me a printed draft email. Addressed to Base Command. Subject line, concern regarding officer mental stability. I read it without reacting. It was detailed, calculated, allegations of paranoia, social withdrawal, erratic accusations against family, financial delusions. They had rehearsed this narrative. If you don't sign the property transfer, Silas said calmly, this goes to your commanding officer. That would be a false report. It would be a concern, Martha corrected. You accused me of theft, I said. Now you're accusing me of instability. You've been secretive for years, she replied. Disappearing, refusing to explain yourself. That's not normal. Operational security, I said. Or imagination, Brianna added quietly. I looked at her. She avoided my eyes. Interesting. Silas stepped closer. You are not untouchable, Avery. You're not special. I didn't respond. He continued. If command questions your psychological fitness, your clearance is suspended. Your career stalls, your record changes. He wasn't wrong. In the military, perception can become paperwork very quickly. Martha softened her tone. We don't want that. Just sign the transfer. Give Brianna the house. Let this end. Let this end. They still thought this was about real estate. You drained my account, I said evenly. You filed a theft complaint. You planted documents in my bag. And now you're threatening to report me as mentally unstable. Brianna's jaw tightened slightly at that last part. You can't prove that, she said. I held her gaze. Careful, I replied. Silas exhaled sharply. This is going nowhere. We'll meet at the gate at 3. Bring the signed documents, or we proceed. He closed the folder. They walked away. I checked my watch. Plenty of time. At 1400 hours, I made 2 calls. First call, secure channel. Escalation confirmed. Prepare visible presence. Response acknowledged. Second call, internal compliance. Is the review progressing? Yes, the investigator said. Findings are significant. Good, I replied. At 14:55, I walked toward the main gate. The air felt heavier than usual. Traffic backed up. Contractors checking IDs, Marines rotating off duty. Normal day. Except it wasn't. My parents were already there. So was Brianna. And this time 2 military police units stood beside them. Not just officers, vehicles, visible. Brianna wanted spectacle. When she saw me approach, she straightened her posture. Silas stepped forward first. Did you bring it? No, I said. Martha closed her eyes briefly like she was disappointed in a child. Then we're forced to act, she said. Brianna nodded at one of the MPS. She's in possession of stolen family property, she said loudly, and potentially classified materials. I noticed the wording, potentially, smart, non-committal. The MP approached me. Ma'am, we need you to come with us again. For what charge? I asked. Pending investigation. There it was, public detention without formal arrest. Humiliation without conviction. A small crowd gathered naturally. Whispers, phones out, base gossip travels fast. Silas raised his voice just enough to be heard. We tried to resolve this privately, Martha added. We're concerned for her well-being. Brianna stood slightly behind them, hands folded. Victim posture, carefully constructed. You understand what this does to your record, Brianna said quietly to me. Yes, I replied. Do you? She frowned slightly. The MP stepped closer with cuffs in hand. Protocol, not aggression. My pulse stayed steady. I glanced at my watch. 10 seconds. 5, 3, 2. I didn't resist. I extended my hand slightly forward. Let them see compliance. Let them believe control. Because sometimes the strongest position is the one that looks like surrender. The MP moved to secure my wrists, and then the sound cut through the air. Engines. Not civilian, not patrol. Deep, coordinated. A black SUV convoy rolled toward the gate, unmarked, deliberate. The MPs paused. Traffic slowed further. The lead vehicle stopped directly behind me. Doors opened in unison. Boots hit pavement. 6 men stepped out, uniforms crisp. Insignia unmistakable. High-level Special Warfare Command. Even the MPs straightened instinctively. Brianna blinked. Silas looked confused. Martha lowered her sunglasses. One of the men walked forward with controlled authority. He didn't look at my parents. He didn't look at Brianna. He looked at me. And then he stopped 3 feet away. The entire gate seemed to hold its breath. The MP still held the cuffs frozen mid-motion. The commander's expression was unreadable, measured, precise. And then he raised his hand. Formal, sharp, a salute. Not casual, not friendly, official, directed at me. And loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, he said, "Ma'am, ma'am." That single word shifted the temperature at the gate. The commander held the salute until I returned it. Yes, I returned it. Calm, clean, by the book. The MP slowly lowered the cuffs, but didn't step back yet. He was waiting for clarification. Everyone was. Commander Vance dropped his hand and addressed the MPs directly. "Why is Colonel Avery being detained?" Silence spread like a ripple. I watched Brianna's expression fracture in real time. "Colonel," one of the MPs repeated. Brianna blinked. That's not. Vance didn't look at her. He held the MP's gaze. "Answer the question." The MP swallowed. "We received a complaint regarding theft and mishandling of classified materials." From whom? Brianna stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "From family," she said quickly. "And from within, logistics oversight." Vance finally turned his head toward her. The look he gave her wasn't angry. It was evaluative. "Name and rank," he said. "Captain Brianna Hayes, logistics officer." He nodded once. "And you initiated this public detention. She's under investigation," Brianna insisted. "We have reason to believe she—" "You have allegations," Vance interrupted. "We have findings." That word landed heavier than the others. "Findings." My parents exchanged a glance. Silas recovered first. "This is a family matter," he said. "She's stolen from us," and Vance cut him off with a raised hand. "This installation does not process family drama at the gate." That got a few suppressed reactions from nearby Marines. Martha stiffened. "We're concerned about her mental state." There it was again. Vance shifted his attention to her slowly. "Ma'am, are you a licensed evaluator for military personnel?" "No, but—" "Then your concern is noted and irrelevant." He turned back to the MPs. "Stand down." The cuffs disappeared. The tension didn't. Brianna's voice rose. "You don't understand what she's done. She's been hiding things. She's unstable. She's been making accusations against me." "Accurate accusations," Vance replied calmly. That stopped her. He stepped slightly to the side, and the other 5 commanders moved into clearer view. Their presence wasn't decorative. It was deliberate. 6 senior SEAL command authorities don't show up at a gate for spectacle. They show up for confirmation. Brianna tried to recover. "This is completely inappropriate. She's just a paper pusher. She doesn't have," Captain Vance said quietly. "You should choose your next sentence carefully." The crowd had grown larger now, not chaotic, just attentive. Public perception works both ways. Silas stepped forward again, frustration creeping into his voice. "We are trying to protect our family's reputation." Vance looked at him like he'd just said something naive. "Reputation," he repeated. Interesting choice of word. He motioned to one of the commanders behind him. A tablet was handed forward. Vance didn't look at it. He looked at Brianna. "Captain Hayes," he said evenly. "Do you wish to continue this conversation here?" She hesitated. Her confidence was slipping. "I don't know what this is," she said carefully. "This," Vance replied, "is oversight." He finally glanced at the tablet, then back at her. Procurement discrepancies, unauthorized access logs, misuse of restricted documentation, forged financial signatures. My mother shook her head quickly. "That's impossible," Silas added. "There must be some mistake." "There isn't," Vance said. He stepped slightly aside so Brianna could see the screen. Her face drained of color. That was the first real reaction I'd seen from her all day. "This is fabricated," she whispered. "No," Vance said. "It's audited." The word hung there. Audited. The net wasn't tightening around me. It had already tightened around her. Brianna's voice cracked slightly. "She set this up." "I documented it," I corrected. She turned to me sharply. "You've been trying to destroy me." "I've been trying to protect federal assets." "That's dramatic." "No," I said calmly. "It's accurate." The MPs stepped back now, shifting their posture. They weren't guarding me anymore. They were waiting for new instructions. Martha grabbed Brianna's arm. "Say something." Brianna pulled away. "This is abuse of authority," she said loudly, trying to reclaim the narrative. "She's leveraging connections." Vance's expression didn't change. 6 independent command confirmations, he said. Hardly leverage. Silas looked between us, confusion turning into fear. "What is she?" he asked. No one answered him, because that question was finally the right one. Brianna tried one last angle. "She stole from us," she insisted. "The ring, the property, the—" "The ring was legally transferred," Vance said without hesitation. Documented 5 years ago, hospital witness signature included. My parents froze. They hadn't known that part was formalized. Grandfather had. Quietly, strategically, Vance continued. As for the financial account, he added, the forged withdrawal request has already been traced. Brianna's breathing shifted. Shorter, faster. Captain Hayes, he said evenly. You are being formally notified that an investigation into financial misconduct and falsification of records is underway. The words were precise, controlled, official. She looked at the MPS like they would intervene. They didn't, because now they understood the alignment. This wasn't sibling conflict. This was federal review. I checked my watch, right on schedule. And then because tension peaks matter, I took one step forward. If anyone here believes I should still be detained, I said clearly enough for those nearby to hear, now would be the time. No one moved. Silence answered for them. Public humiliation is loud when it starts. When it reverses, it's very quiet. Brianna's Porsche sat parked along the curb. Shiny, expensive, traceable. The illusion was collapsing in layers. And she finally realized something critical. This had never been about winning an argument. It had been about evidence. She had built her own case, and I had simply allowed it to finish forming. I kept my hand steady as the MP adjusted his grip. For a split second, it looked like the cuffs might still close. Procedure has momentum. Once it starts, it doesn't like to stop. Then Commander Vance stepped fully into position beside me, not behind, beside. That detail mattered. He turned slightly so the crowd could see both of us clearly. Optics. He understood them as well as Brianna thought she did. His voice carried without effort. Colonel Avery Hayes, he said, formal and sharp. Your submitted report regarding financial misconduct within Logistics Command has been verified. There it was, title, rank, confirmation, spoken in front of half the installation. The MP immediately removed his hand from my wrist. I didn't move. Vance continued louder now. All supporting documentation has been cross-validated through independent audit channels. Evidence is consistent with deliberate embezzlement and falsification of procurement records. You could hear the air leave Brianna's lungs. My mother stepped back as if the words were physical. Silas looked confused, then offended, then suddenly unsure which emotion to commit to. Brianna found her voice first. This is insane, she said. She doesn't outrank me. Vance finally turned his head toward her. She does, he replied. Simple, direct, no explanation. One of the other commanders stepped forward and handed Vance a sealed document packet. He didn't open it. He handed it to the senior MP instead. Captain Brianna Hayes, he said calmly. You are hereby placed under investigation for misuse of federal funds, falsification of official documents, and unlawful access to restricted materials. The word captain sounded different this time, not respectful, precise, measured. The MP who had almost cuffed me straightened his posture and turned toward Brianna. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step forward. She laughed once. A short, brittle sound. You can't be serious. I am, the MP replied. She looked at my parents. Say something. Martha opened her mouth, then closed it again. Silas tried a different approach. This is a misunderstanding, he said firmly. Our daughter has served with distinction, so has this one, Vance said evenly without looking at him. That landed. Brianna's composure cracked at the edges. This is retaliation, she said, pointing at me. She's been obsessed with proving me wrong for years. I met her gaze. I documented discrepancies, I said calmly. You escalated them, you set me up. No, I replied. You signed for the transfers. The MP stepped closer to her. Captain, hands where I can see them. The crowd had shifted again. Earlier they were watching me. Now they were watching her. Perception changes quickly when authority clarifies direction. Brianna hesitated. For the first time in her life, hesitation wasn't strategic. It was fear. You don't understand how this looks, she whispered to Vance. I understand exactly how it looks, he said. Another commander spoke for the first time. 5-year pattern, he said. Incremental fund diversion, vendor padding, personal asset inflation inconsistent with salary. Every word was surgical. Brianna's Porsche sat 30 feet away, still shining, still visible, still traceable. My mother's voice trembled now. Avery, she said softly. Fix this. I didn't respond, because this wasn't mine to fix. It was theirs to face. The MP gently but firmly guided Brianna's hands behind her back. This time the cuffs did close. The sound was small, but final. She didn't resist. She stared at me instead. You planned this, she said quietly. I prepared for it, I replied. There's a difference. Silas stepped forward impulsively, then stopped when one of the commanders shifted his stance. He looked smaller suddenly, not physically, structurally. He had walked into this assuming influence. He was leaving without it. Vance turned back to me. His tone softened slightly, but only slightly. Colonel, he said, thank you for your thorough reporting. I nodded. Thank you for your timing. He almost smiled. We prefer accuracy. Behind us, 2 additional vehicles entered the gate. Internal compliance officers. Not dramatic, just procedural. They approached Brianna and began reading formal notification terms. She stopped listening halfway through. Her eyes stayed on me. You let them think you were nothing, she said. I never corrected them, I replied. That's manipulation. No, I said, that's discipline. She shook her head slowly. You could have warned me. I did, I said. She thought about that. The planted documents, the forged withdrawal, the public detention attempt. She had received warnings. She just mistook them for weakness. The compliance officer asked her about the Porsche keys. She hesitated again. The MP gently extended his hand. She surrendered them. Across the gate, whispers started shifting tone. Not gossip anymore. Recognition. 6 SEAL commanders don't salute someone casually. They don't show up for theatrics. They show up for impact. My father finally looked directly at me. Colonel, he repeated as if testing the word. Yes, I said. You never told us. You never asked the right questions. Martha removed her sunglasses completely now. Her eyes were red, not from grief, from exposure. Vance stepped slightly closer to me. We'll need you for formal briefing in 30 minutes, he said. I'll be ready. He nodded once, then he stepped back. Not in front of me, behind me. Support position, visible, deliberate. The MPS escorted Brianna toward the vehicle. Her posture remained straight, but the confidence was gone. As she passed me, she leaned slightly in my direction. You ruined everything, she whispered. I didn't lower my voice. No, I said. You did. The door of the MP vehicle closed. And just like that, the spectacle ended. No shouting, no chaos, just consequences. The gate resumed movement slowly. Traffic restarted. Conversations shifted. And for the first time all week, I wasn't the center of suspicion. I was the source of confirmation. Vance glanced at his watch. On schedule, he said quietly. I adjusted the ring on my finger. Cold metal, steady weight. And finally, the balance had shifted exactly where it belonged. I walked straight from the gate to the secure briefing room. No pause, no victory lap, just work. The 6 commanders followed along with 2 compliance officers and a legal representative from JAG. The door sealed behind us, soundproof, cleared. Commander Vance took the seat across from me. For the record, he said, state your role. I placed my tablet on the table but didn't turn it on yet. Colonel Avery Hayes, I said, Senior Financial Crimes Investigator, Department of Defense, assigned to Joint Special Operations Financial Oversight for the past 5 years. The legal officer nodded and began typing. Vance leaned back slightly. Clarify scope. I track irregular procurement patterns tied to operational units, I said. I identify internal diversion of funds, contractor inflation, black market resupply leakage, and embedded fraud networks that compromise mission readiness. One of the other commanders added quietly, She finds the leak before the boat sinks. I didn't react to that. Flattery isn't part of my job description, Vance continued. Duration of current investigation. 21 months active review, I replied. 5-year data baseline. And Captain Brianna Hayes flagged 14 months ago, I said. Escalated to priority review after cross-unit discrepancies aligned with personal asset inflation. I tapped the screen. The display came alive. Charts, transaction logs, procurement authorizations, time-stamped entries, no emotion, just numbers. This, I said, zooming in, is the first anomaly. Vendor overbilling on non-perishable supply shipments. Marginal amounts, small enough to avoid audit triggers. I swiped. Pattern repeats across 3 units. Same vendor cluster. Same approval signature. Brianna's. Another swipe. Here I continued personal asset acquisition timeline. Vehicle purchase. Luxury watch. 2 offshore transfers flagged but intercepted. One commander shook his head slowly. She thought incremental meant invisible, he said. It usually does, I replied. Until someone tracks aggregate flow. The JAG officer cleared his throat. And the forged signature, I pulled up the scanned bank form. Side-by-side comparison. My actual signature. Her imitation. Forensic handwriting analysis confirms non-match, I said. Surveillance footage places Captain Hayes at the financial institution during the withdrawal. Vance didn't look surprised. He already knew. This isn't sibling rivalry, he said quietly. This is systemic breach. Yes, I replied. I switched screens again. New document. Arrest authorization. Charges listed clearly. Forgery. Embezzlement of federal funds. Falsification of official records. Unlawful access to restricted documentation. And one more. Defamation with intent to damage officer clearance. The room stayed silent for a moment. One of the commanders spoke first. You saved 3 of my men in Kandahar because fuel allocations were rerouted before deployment, he said. That was logistics correction, I replied. That was survival, he corrected. Another commander added, Your audit stopped a compromised contractor pipeline in Syria. We lost equipment. We didn't lose personnel. I nodded once. That was the objective. Vance looked at me steadily. You never disclosed your connection to Captain Hayes. It wasn't operationally relevant, I said. You allowed her to proceed. Yes. Why? Because exposure without evidence is noise, I replied. Exposure with evidence is resolution. He studied me for a second longer, then he gave a short nod. Understood. The legal officer finalized the documentation. Formal charges will be processed immediately, she said. Given the financial scale and clearance violations, this will not remain internal. It wouldn't. It couldn't. Brianna had aimed for optics. She was about to get national-level paperwork instead. I powered down the tablet. 5 years of classified financial tracing, 18 months of patient data layering, countless nights in windowless offices running anomaly detection models while my family called me irrelevant. The desk job, the paper pusher. That label had protected me better than any disguise. Vance stood. For clarity, he said, addressing the room, Colonel Hayes was assigned to Joint Financial Integrity Oversight under Special Operations Command. Her clearance level exceeds Standard Installation Review Authority. That statement wasn't ego. It was context. The MPs at the gate had almost cuffed a senior investigative officer embedded to prevent exactly what Brianna had done. Optics can be dangerous. Assumptions are worse. One of the commanders leaned forward slightly. You let her underestimate you, he said. Yes. Intentionally, yes. He almost smiled. Effective. I stood as well. Captain Hayes believed visibility equaled power, I said. In financial crime, invisibility is power. Vance walked toward the door. We'll handle external communication, he said. Your role remains confidential. As always, I replied. He paused before opening the door. For what it's worth, he added, you did not have to make this public. I didn't, I said. She did. That distinction mattered. Outside the briefing room, base activity continued like nothing historic had just shifted. That's how institutions work. They absorb shock quietly. I stepped into the hallway alone. For the first time all week, no one was watching me with suspicion. Some were watching with recognition. Different energy. Less gossip, more calculation. I walked past the motor pool again. The Porsche was gone, impounded. Traceable assets don't sit long once documentation catches up. My phone vibrated once. Secure message, detention confirmed, transfer pending. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say operationally. The underdog narrative had expired. Not because I proved them wrong loudly, but because I never needed their approval to begin with. And now the file was complete. I stood outside the administrative building and watched the tow truck hook onto the Porsche. No drama, no shouting, just paperwork and a chain. The vehicle had already been flagged as an asset tied to an active financial misconduct investigation. That meant temporary seizure pending full audit. Luxury loses its shine when it becomes evidence. Brianna was seated on a bench nearby, wrist cuffed in front, now escorted, but not dragged. Her posture was still straight, but the confidence was gone. She wasn't looking at the car. She was staring at the ground. My parents stood a few feet away, not sure where to position themselves. Not close enough to look complicit. Not far enough to look uninvolved. Martha saw me first. She walked toward me quickly. Avery, she said, voice shaking, this has gone too far. No, I replied. It went exactly as far as it needed to. She's your sister. She's an officer under investigation. Don't talk about her like that. Like what accurately Silas stepped in. You've made your point, he said. The car is gone. Her promotion is gone. That's enough. It's not about the car, I said. Then what do you want? Accountability? Martha lowered her voice. You can still fix this. Withdraw the complaint. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I didn't file a complaint, I said calmly. I filed documentation. She grabbed my arm. For the first time, there was no superiority in her expression. Only fear. She'll lose everything. I held her gaze. She already did. Silas tried a different angle. Think about the family, he said. Think about how this looks. I almost smiled. That's what got us here. He exhaled sharply. You're being cold. No, I said. I'm being consistent. Behind them, Brianna finally looked up. Her eyes were red now, not angry, not defiant, just stripped. She called out quietly, Avery. I walked closer but kept distance. You don't have to do this, she said. I didn't start this. You could stop it. I shook my head once. That's not how federal investigations work. You could influence it. I won't, she swallowed. You're enjoying this. That assumption again. No, I said. I'm finishing it. Martha stepped forward urgently. Please, she said. We're your parents. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Since we're talking about family, I said calmly, let's talk about honesty. I opened an audio file, date stamped. 3 weeks earlier, my mother's voice filled the space between us. Christmas would be better without her, the recording said clearly. She makes everything tense. It's exhausting pretending she matters. The silence afterward was heavier than anything that had happened at the gate. Martha's face drained of color. That was private, she whispered. No, I said. That was accurate. Silas looked at her, then at me. You recorded us, I document patterns. Brianna closed her eyes briefly. That was a bad night, Martha said quickly. I was emotional. You were honest, I replied. Silas tried again. Families say things. Families also choose things, I said. I turned off the recording. You chose image over integrity, I continued. You chose promotion over principle. You chose silence when she forged my name. Martha's voice cracked. We thought you wouldn't fight back. I didn't, I said. I investigated. The compliance officers approached Brianna. Transfer vehicle ready, one of them said. She stood slowly. The cuffs were removed and replaced with transport restraints. Procedure, no theatrics. Before she was escorted away, she looked at me one last time. What happens to the house, she asked quietly. Straight to assets, even now. I held up the folder I had brought with me. Grandfather's property has already been reassigned. Silas stiffened. Reassigned to who? To a veterans rehabilitation fund, I said. Structured trust, irrevocable. Martha blinked. You can't just give away family property. It was my legal share, I replied. And now it supports wounded service members. Silas shook his head slowly. That was our legacy. No, I said. It was his. And my grandfather had valued service over status. Brianna's shoulders dropped slightly. So we get nothing, she asked. You had everything, I replied. You misused it. The transport vehicle door opened. She stepped inside without another word. The door closed. And just like that, the illusion collapsed completely. No luxury car, no pending promotion, no narrative control, just documentation. My parents stood there smaller than I had ever seen them. What do we tell people? Martha asked quietly. The truth, I said. Silas looked at the base behind me. They won't protect her. No, I said. They protect the mission. And you? He asked. I protect the numbers. They didn't understand that answer. They didn't need to. The tow truck pulled away with the Porsche. The transport vehicle exited through a secondary gate. Traffic resumed. Normalcy is quick to return once spectacle ends. Martha removed her sunglasses again. You've cut us off, she said. No, I replied. You did. They had measured worth and visibility. They had mistaken silence for weakness. They had believed protection came from proximity to power. They never considered that power can operate quietly. I adjusted the ring on my finger. Cold metal, steady weight. Grandfather had understood something they never did. Respect isn't inherited. It's demonstrated. And once lost, it doesn't transfer back easily. My parents stood there without reputation, without leverage, without the military insulation they assumed would always shield their favorite daughter. For the first time in years, I felt no tension in my chest. Not satisfaction, not anger, just clarity. The illusion was gone. And nothing replaces illusion faster than consequence. I didn't go home after the transport vehicle disappeared. I went to the flight line. Rotor noise carries differently when your head is clear. It's not chaos, it's rhythm. The helicopter was already prepped. Crew chief standing by, pilot running checks. No ceremony, just scheduling. Commander Vance met me near the aircraft. Short deployment, he said. Financial review support overseas. You'll brief in transit. Understood. He studied my face for a moment. You good? Yes. He nodded once. That was enough. No congratulations, no dramatic handshake. We both prefer results over speeches. I climbed into the aircraft and secured my headset. The door remained open while final clearance came through. From that angle, I could see most of the base. Motor pool, admin building, main gate. Earlier that week, that gate had felt like a stage. Now it looked small. People were moving normally, vehicles entering and exiting, Marines adjusting covers, life continuing. Most of them would never know the full story. They didn't need to. Institutions survive because they process problems quietly and move forward. I rested my hand on my right ring finger. The silver band caught the light briefly, scratched, worn, unimpressive, valuable, not because of money, because of intent. My grandfather never cared about appearances. He cared about service done properly. He gave me that ring in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and finality. Do the job right, he told me, even if no one claps. He was right. No one clapped today. They watched. They recalculated. They adjusted assumptions. That's enough. My phone vibrated once before I powered it down for flight. A single message from internal compliance. Charges officially filed. Asset recovery in progress. Concise. Final. Brianna would face court-martial proceedings, financial restitution, permanent record implications. My parents would face something different. Silence. Reputation doesn't vanish overnight. It erodes. Whispers, distance. Invitations that stop arriving. They had built identity around one daughter's visibility. They never noticed the other one was building structure. The crew chief gave me a thumbs up. Door closing in 30 seconds. I took one last look toward the administrative building. Earlier, that's where they had tried to label me unstable. It's interesting how quickly the narrative shifts when documentation speaks. The door slid shut. Sound changed instantly. Rotor wash intensified. The aircraft lifted smoothly off the ground. As we rose, the base shrank beneath us. Buildings reduced to shapes. Vehicles to dots. People to movement without identity. Perspective is powerful. When you're standing at a gate being accused publicly, it feels enormous. When you're above it, it's just coordinates. I leaned back and adjusted the headset. Across from me sat a young operations officer reviewing a tablet. He glanced up briefly. You the financial oversight, he asked. Yes, he nodded. Glad you're on this one. That was it. No title mention, no family history, no drama, just competence acknowledged in the right room. That's what respect actually feels like. Not applause, not comparison, not parental approval, just trust and execution. I closed my eyes briefly and let the vibration of the aircraft settle into something steady. For years, I had been underestimated at dinner tables. For years, I had been compared, measured, dismissed. Desk job, paper pusher, not visible. They confused visibility with value. They confused silence with weakness. They confused patience with passivity. They were wrong. And they found out the hard way. I don't hate Brianna. I don't hate my parents. Hate wastes focus. What I feel is distance, clear, defined. Healthy distance. Family isn't automatic. It's not guaranteed by shared DNA. It's built on respect, on accountability, on mutual recognition. If those things aren't there, what you have isn't family. It's proximity. And proximity without respect turns toxic fast. The helicopter leveled out. Cloud cover ahead, new coordinates, new numbers, new discrepancies waiting to be corrected. I pressed my thumb against the edge of the ring again, cold metal, steady reminder. Justice doesn't shout, it documents. If you've ever been the quiet one in the room, if you've ever worked in silence while someone else took credit, if you've ever been treated like the least impressive person at the table while carrying the heaviest responsibility, I want to ask you something. When the truth finally came out in your life, did you feel anger or did you feel freedom? Tell me your answer in the comments. And if you believe respect matters more than blood, make sure you're subscribed, because stories like this aren't about revenge. They're about standards. I didn't correct them when they called me a paper pusher. I didn't interrupt when they said I hid behind a desk. I didn't list deployments. I didn't mention clearance levels. I didn't explain classified briefings or the fact that 6 senior commanders knew my name before my own parents did. I let them underestimate me. That wasn't insecurity, that was discipline. Here's something most people don't understand. Silence is not weakness, it's leverage. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful one. The loudest person is usually the most anxious to be seen. Real leverage doesn't rush to be recognized. It builds quietly, accumulates data, and waits for timing. For years, my sister believed visibility was power. She showed up to events. She networked aggressively. She drove the right car. She curated perception. And to most people watching from the outside, she looked successful. Meanwhile, I was invisible. That invisibility protected me. When someone thinks you're not a threat, they stop guarding themselves. They talk more. They take bigger risks. They assume you don't see the patterns forming. Let people underestimate you. It's one of the most underrated strategic advantages you will ever have. In the workplace, this matters more than most people admit. If you're constantly trying to prove you're competent, you burn energy on performance instead of production. You become reactive. You measure your value by how often you're praised. That's unstable. Instead, build skill, build documentation, build consistency. Let your results arrive before your explanation does. There is a difference between confidence and the need for validation. Confidence does not argue. Confidence prepares. When my sister forged my signature, she assumed I would react emotionally. She assumed I would confront her at dinner, demand apologies, escalate the drama. I didn't. I logged into my account. I reviewed timestamps. I confirmed surveillance footage. I escalated through secure channels. That's not coldness. That's structure. If you are someone who has been dismissed, underestimated, or labeled as less impressive, ask yourself something honest. Are you trying to win arguments, or are you trying to build position? Winning arguments feels satisfying in the moment. Building position wins long-term. Silence allows you to observe. When you stop talking, you start noticing patterns. You hear contradictions. You recognize insecurity disguised as confidence. You see who respects you when you're not performing. There's also a personal side to this. In families, especially competitive ones, there's often a ranking system. One child becomes the achiever. Another becomes the quiet one. Labels form early, they stick. And once you accept a label publicly, people stop updating their perception. I never tried to change their label. I changed my environment instead. I built credibility in rooms where performance mattered more than personality. You don't need everyone to understand you. You need the right rooms to recognize you. That shift alone changes everything. If you're currently in a situation where you feel overlooked, here are 3 things I want you to consider. First, stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. If someone has already decided you're insignificant, no speech will convince them otherwise. They are protecting their own hierarchy. Don't exhaust yourself trying to climb a ladder they control. Second, document everything. Emotion fades. Memory shifts. Documentation doesn't. In business, keep records. In conflict, save communication. In leadership, track performance metrics. Structure protects you when narratives turn hostile. Third, delay reaction. The urge to respond immediately is ego. The decision to wait is strength. When someone disrespects you, pause. Ask yourself, what outcome do I actually want? Immediate satisfaction or strategic advantage? Most people choose satisfaction. That's why most people stay stuck. Power that needs applause isn't power, it's insecurity. If your worth depends on public acknowledgement, then someone else controls it. If your worth is anchored in competence and integrity, it doesn't fluctuate based on opinion. After everything unfolded at the gate, people started recalculating how they saw me. That didn't change who I was, it just updated their perception. But here's the part that matters most. I didn't feel triumph, I felt stability. Because my identity had never depended on their validation in the first place. If you build your life around proving someone wrong, you are still orbiting them. Build your life around your own standard instead. There will always be people who underestimate you. Let them. There will always be rooms where you are misjudged. Walk through them anyway. There will always be someone louder, flashier, more visible. Visibility is temporary. Competence compounds. So if you're the quiet one right now, if you're working behind the scenes, if you're building skill without applause, understand this: you're not behind, you're positioning. And when the moment comes when evidence matters, when structure is tested, when leadership requires calm instead of volume, you won't need to raise your voice. You'll just present the facts. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated so badly that people didn't even realize you were the one holding the structure together? What did you choose to build instead of argue? Tell me. When I played that recording of my mother's voice, I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was ending denial. There's a difference. For years, I told myself, they don't mean it. They're just stressed. They don't understand my job. But understanding wasn't the issue. Respect was. And love without respect turns into control. That's a hard sentence to accept when you're talking about family. We grow up hearing that blood is thicker than water, that family comes first, that loyalty is unconditional. But here's what most people don't say out loud. Unconditional loyalty without accountability becomes permission for abuse. My parents didn't wake up one morning and decide to betray me. They justified small things first. She's sensitive. She's distant. She doesn't contribute the same way. Then they justified bigger things. She should help her sister. She doesn't need that money. She's overreacting. Eventually, they justified fraud. Not because they were evil, because they were biased. And bias inside a family is powerful. If you're the golden child, you get defended. If you're the quiet one, you get questioned. Once that narrative sets in, everything you do gets filtered through it. So when Brianna forged my signature, they didn't ask, "Did she do this?" They asked, "What did Avery do to cause this?" That's not support. That's distortion. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Emotional manipulation rarely sounds aggressive. It sounds concerned. We're worried about you. You're not acting like yourself. You're being dramatic. We just want what's best. Those sentences sound caring. But pay attention to the pattern. Are they listening to you, or are they trying to correct you? Are they asking questions? Or are they assigning labels? In my case, the narrative shifted quickly from, "You took the ring," to "You're unstable." That wasn't random. Questioning someone's mental state is a control tactic. It shifts attention from facts to character. It forces you to defend your identity instead of the issue. That's strategic, and it's common. If you've ever had someone say, "You're overreacting," when you calmly pointed out a boundary, you've experienced this. Here's what boundaries actually are. Boundaries are not punishments. They are conditions for access. Access to your time. Access to your energy. Access to your trust. When someone repeatedly disrespects you and you say, "This isn't acceptable," you are not attacking them. You are defining the terms under which you will participate. In families, that feels threatening, because family systems often rely on familiarity, not respect. They rely on history. We've known you forever. We raised you. We're your parents. None of those statements guarantee healthy behavior. They only establish timeline. Here's something I learned the hard way. You can love someone and still refuse to let them harm you. That sentence took me years to understand, because for a long time, I believed setting boundaries meant I was cold, ungrateful, disloyal. But what is loyalty exactly? Is it silence when someone lies? Is it cooperation when someone steals? Is it protection when someone manipulates? Or is it honesty? Even when honesty costs something. When I refused to withdraw documentation, my parents said I was tearing the family apart. Number one, I was refusing to hold it together with denial. There's a difference. If you are in a situation where family members dismiss your concerns, override your autonomy, or weaponize your reputation, you have to decide something important. Is proximity worth the price of self-respect? Sometimes distance is not rebellion, it's stabilization. Here are 3 practical steps if you're navigating this in real life. First, get clear on your non-negotiables. Write them down if you have to. I will not tolerate financial dishonesty. I will not accept public humiliation. I will not engage in conversations that question my sanity without evidence. Clarity removes confusion. Second, stop debating your boundary. State it once, repeat it if necessary, but don't turn it into a courtroom every time someone challenges it. Boundaries are not arguments, they're policies. Third, accept that some relationships will shift. When you stop being easy to control, people react. They may call you selfish. They may say you've changed. You have. You stopped absorbing damage quietly. That's growth. After everything happened, my parents asked, "What do we tell people?" That question revealed everything. They weren't asking how to repair trust. They were asking how to manage perception. Perception was always their priority. Mine is integrity. Family is not defined by shared last names. It's defined by shared standards. If someone repeatedly violates those standards and expects forgiveness without correction, that's not love. That's entitlement. And entitlement doesn't improve without consequence. If you're watching this and you're struggling with a family dynamic that drains you, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not required to tolerate disrespect to prove you're a good son, daughter, sister, or brother. You are allowed to require accountability. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that distort reality. And you are allowed to build a life where respect is mutual, not conditional. Let me ask you something honest. Have you ever stayed silent in your own family just to keep the peace, even when that silence cost you self-respect? If you did what finally made you change, when everything settled, people expected me to feel victorious. They expected celebration. They expected anger. I felt none of that. What I felt was quiet. That's how you know the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is emotional. Justice is structured. Revenge wants someone to hurt. Justice wants the record corrected. If I had wanted revenge, I could have exposed Brianna publicly months earlier. I could have confronted her at dinner. I could have embarrassed her in front of command. That would have felt satisfying for about 10 minutes. Then it would have collapsed into noise. Instead, I built a case. Revenge reacts. Justice prepares. There's a lesson here that goes beyond family drama. When someone betrays you, your first instinct is to respond immediately, to clear your name, to call them out, to demand acknowledgement. That instinct is ego. It's human, but it's rarely strategic. The moment you react emotionally, you surrender control of timing, and timing is everything. When my sister forged my signature, I didn't confront her that night. I didn't send an angry message. I didn't gather the family and demand an apology. I stabilized. That's step 1, stabilize. Before you respond to betrayal, regulate yourself. Calm doesn't mean passive. It means controlled. You cannot make strategic decisions while triggered. Step 2, document. Emotion fades. Facts don't. In professional settings, save emails, screenshot messages. Keep transaction records. Track patterns. In personal settings, notice behavior trends. Notice repeated excuses. Notice inconsistencies. Documentation is not paranoia, it's protection. Step 3, choose long-term outcome over short-term ego. Ask yourself, what do I actually want? Do I want them to feel embarrassed, or do I want this resolved permanently? Those are different goals. Many people sabotage their own resolution because they chase immediate emotional release. They send the angry text. They post the vague social media message. They escalate in public. And then they lose leverage. Closure does not come from confrontation. It comes from clarity. Clarity about what happened. Clarity about your standards. Clarity about what you will and will not tolerate moving forward. Here's another hard truth. If you pursue justice with hatred, you start to resemble the person who wronged you. Bitterness reshapes you. It changes your tone, your posture, your relationships. You become suspicious of everyone. That's not strength. That's damage. After everything unfolded, I had every reason to resent my sister, but resentment would tie me to her decisions, and I refused to let someone else's misconduct define my emotional state. Winning without becoming them requires discipline. It requires emotional regulation. It requires refusing to mirror manipulation with manipulation. I didn't lie. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't smear. I presented evidence. That's it. And here's something important. You don't need to destroy someone to move on. You need to establish consequence. Consequence teaches. Destruction satisfies ego. There's a difference. A lot of people spend years trying to prove someone wrong. A parent, a sibling, a boss, an ex. They build careers fueled by resentment. They succeed, but they're still anchored to the person who doubted them. That's not freedom. Freedom is building because you value competence. Freedom is improving because excellence matters to you. Freedom is waking up and not needing their acknowledgement. When I left that base on the helicopter, I didn't think I showed them. I thought the system worked, and that's enough. If you're in the middle of a conflict right now at work, in your family, in a relationship, ask yourself 3 questions. First, am I reacting or am I structuring? Second, am I trying to win emotionally or resolve strategically? Third, if this ends tomorrow, who will I have become in the process? Those questions matter because sometimes the real victory isn't that the other person falls. It's that you don't. You stay disciplined. You stay accurate. You stay aligned with your own standard. That's integrity. Integrity doesn't always look dramatic. It looks steady. It looks boring sometimes. It looks like saying nothing when you could say everything. But it builds a life that doesn't require constant defense. And that's the real win. If you've ever been betrayed and had to decide between emotional retaliation and disciplined action, I want to know something. What did you choose, and what did it cost you? Tell me.
Final note. This story is a work of fiction created by artificial intelligence to heighten drama and emotion. But the valuable lessons we discuss are entirely real and continue to happen to many people every day. If this style isn't for you, that's perfectly okay. Please feel free to look for other content that better suits your needs.